We're diving into a story that strikes at the heart of democracy, dissent, and digital rights in Nigeria. The Social Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, and Amnesty International have jointly called on President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to withdraw cybercrime and defamation charges against activist Omoyele Sowore, as well as against social media platforms X and Facebook.
SERAP and Amnesty International have jointly called on President Bola Tinubu to withdraw cybercrime and defamation charges against activist Omoyele Sowore, as well as against social media platforms X and Facebook. Joining us now to unpack this is legal practitioner Mr. Jide Ologun. Good morning and thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Pleasure.
Right, quite an interesting conversation here. SERAP and Amnesty are saying that these are just really, the charges are weaponization of justice. So let's find out what your thoughts are regarding this. There are those who also criticize Omoyele Sowore for having called the president a criminal. But what side of the divide are you on?
Thank you very much. On the scale of morality, calling the president of a country, it's a weighty one. And of course, this is an allegation that Sowore may be called upon to substantiate, and sometimes that may warrant the step the federal government took that, okay, let him be arrested and to justify his claim. And you know Sowore, and I believe we discussed the flip side of it because Wike got involved and he has slammed Wike with some documents and some allegations. You see, so, and now SERAP and Amnesty International is saying no, withdraw the charges against him on the scale of the freedom of expression, respect for the rule of law, because this Cybercrime Act, came as a response to the hate speech wind that was blowing. And, we hope that the government will consider the calls. But I know that for Omoyele Sowore, he is accustomed to this engagement. Recall that in 2019, when he ignited the Revolution Now movement, he was even in incarceration for about 125 days by the DSS before he was finally, released. So for him, he's always ready. And there was a time also he came in from the US and he was held at the airport and eventually released. And he said, this is his country, and we always come around. And again, at the international level, this is a personality that has dual citizenship. And that is why it's interesting that what started some days back is now growing bigger to international level because he has petitioned against Wike in the US. But for now, the DSS has the responsibility to ensure the protection of the president and the security in the land, that the land is not thrown into tantrum. But then, what Sowore also said concerning the president was that it was wrong for the president to go to Brazil and say there is no more corruption in Nigeria, So all this must be profiled. In public relations, we talk about image, we talk about reputation. So sometimes also it's good for you to sit back and consider the feedback you are getting. But like I said, Sowore, I doubt if he's ruffled, and some have asked that DSS should focus on more serious issues. But going back to where I started, it's not a tiny issue calling the president and commander-in-chief of a whole country a criminal.
That brings me to my question. Where's the thin line, and where do you cross the line between freedom of expression and libel and saying things, provocative things that you don't even have evidence to back it? Then the other side of it is also the DSS priorities. And are you going to respond to, the president is a public figure. If you also look at President Donald Trump in the US, many things are said unprintable things on a daily basis.
And he also says unprintable things.
He also says unprintable things. So should we look at the office and the personality and just, you can't respond to every single criticism, or make people know that there are certain things that you can't say if you don't have evidence to prove it?
Thank you. To start with, for the office of the president, he enjoys immunity. So even if there are issues, he cannot be prosecuted for them. And having said that, talking generally, the president is a citizen, and he is also expected to be accountable. You see, and on the issue of libel, Sowore can be sued to prove what he has said. Currently, we have the case of Natasha and Akpabio, the president of the Senate. Natasha went on air and said Akpabio directed the former governor of Kogi State to kill her, and that he should not kill her in Kogi State. That was a weighty one. And the matter is in court right now, for adjudication. So these are issues. And I recall the case of Oshiomhole and the former governor of Benue State, Otom, where Oshiomhole also said, when he was chairman of APC, that the governor supervised the killings of some personalities in Benue State. And Governor Otom didn't take that lightly. Eventually, Oshiomhole apologized. But you see, in this case of Omoyele Sowore, he was a presidential candidate in Nigeria. He's politically exposed. So that is why the attraction is coming. So there are provisions for suing for libel, so you cannot just rise up and say something about someone. Again, now that Wike got involved and was saying publicly that Sowore should count himself lucky for having an accommodating person like the president, that if were to be. And Sowore slammed back and even called Wike an international thief, that he has at least 2 houses in Florida that he purchased with laundered money in the name of his wife for their children. And Sowore has brought out documents. He has petitioned the Attorney General in that state in the U.S. to go and investigate, and that he should not allow his state to become a haven for money laundering and the proceeds of money laundering. He's asking for the prosecution of Wike and the forfeiture of those properties. And according to Sowore, there may be other properties, And again, the wife of Wike is a Court of Appeal judge in Nigeria. So there are issues here. But politicians, they throw mods around. But you see, when it begins to have the international dimension, it's a different ball game, because right now...
Because our nation is in the spotlight.
Exactly. And right now, the U.S. mission in Nigeria has threatened that visa may not be granted to corrupt elites. But then, they should also know that America is just one of the destinations.
Exactly.
I was reading the response of Dangote to the battle from that man and the stakeholders in the oil and gas, and this issue of taxation. He was advising the government that, you see, currently, the wealthy men in Nigeria may be moving to Monaco with their wealth, where...
Tax haven.
Exactly. So these are issues. You talk of Antigua, you talk of... There are other options. In fact, our president and commander-in-chief is more of a fan of France than the UK. So there are various destinations, but you see, it's instructive. In public relations, when you talk about economic environment, they profile your governance system, your ethical approaches, and things like that. And back in Nigeria, Section 15, subsection 5 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended states clearly that the state shall abolish corrupt practices and abuse of power. So we need to be, we should not just attend to these allegations as if they are no big deal. We can see the impact of corruption on this country. But again, that is subject to Section 36 of the Constitution, which grants presumption of innocence, because those allegations must be proved beyond all reasonable doubt. And that is even if there's a prosecution.
Just to clarify again, when Omoyele Sowore says that, because in the tweets, the original tweet that caused this issue, he had said, this criminal, and then he mentioned the president. Regardless of what evidence he has against the president, I know you've spoken about it from the moral perspective, but part of the arguments that we've heard preferred, in this situation is that he's not the one who can determine the criminality or otherwise of the president, especially because he's not been charged and convicted for, criminality in any court that we know of. Is that an argument that holds water?
It's an argument. I've mentioned that. I mentioned the case of, though he was not called a criminal outrightly, former governor of Benue State, Autumn, well, he took it up against Oshomole, and eventually Oshomole appealed. I mentioned the case of Natasha, saying someone gave a directive that he should be killed.
Making weighty allegations.
Exactly. So, and the president of Senate has gone to court that she should come and justify her claims. So, the judicial interventions are there. But again, bringing it to governance platform, recently, the former governor of Kaduna State, El-Rufai, accused the office of the National Security Advisor of paying bandits. There are statements politicians have made. In the days of the former president of Nigeria, Dr. Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, he was called clueless and different kinds of unthinkable names. You see, so who was...
Well, does it matter that our current president has said that, in one of his addresses, that he's going to be more tolerant of harsh words, had instructed that nobody should make any arrests.
Exactly. He even says, he says that he knows he's hated like hell and things like that.
And that he doesn't even read comments on social media.
But you see, on the scale of decency, I think some action should be taken. But again, socially, you look at who you are dealing with. It's just like in the days of Gani Fawehinmi. Gani Fawehinmi was not moved by what the reaction was going to be.
Or arrested.
So, exactly. He fought. And Omoyele Sowore is a fighter. And my advice generally is that leadership should sit back and consider the essence of being in office. And Section 14, subsection 2 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 summarizes it. And it says that the security and the welfare of the citizens shall be the primary purpose of government. And for them to know, what the U.S. mission is saying now is that, there is no limit to accountability. And your personality...
regardless of status.
Exactly, of status. And you saw that playing out in the UK when the former Honorable Ekweremadu in our Senate, which law enforcement agency in Nigeria was going to go for Ekweremadu? None. I can practically say that. But in the UK, you saw what happened.
Now, quickly, just before we run out of time, let's talk about the inclusion of these social media platforms, X and Facebook, in the lawsuit. Is this illegal overreach or strategy to control digital narratives? He used their platform. The DSS wrote to them to compel him to delete, and they said, look, based on freedom of expression rules and all of that, they aren't going to do it. What responsibility do they bear in this?
They bear the responsibility of ensuring decency, but again, we have intercultural platform there. In the U.S., Donald Trump, right now, he's saying he hates his opposition.
He's even saying that Joe Biden's diagnosis of a cancer should not be a reason for people to feel sorry for him. That
exactly.
he's a terrible person.
In their own
that's
society.
That's the president.
Exactly.
Saying that to his predecessor.
And this is a global platform. And let me say this. In public relations, you talk about perception. Even when some laws are made, for instance, people interpret why they are made. Talking about hate speech, is it that people should not comment on the realities in the nation, you see? And let me also advise that the government should go and study what led to the Nepal revolution that just took place, the Gen Z move against the government. it also had a link with this social media censorship. Even in the US, it's been trending for days now. You know, a talk show host was yanked off.
Jimmy Kimmel.
Exactly.
But he's coming back.
Yes, he's coming back now.
The backlash.
And that is what we are saying. The government should also have a balance. The impression about this country is that the government is so powerful that they unilaterally operate, they are not accountable. And that is the message. You know, recently the American embassy even came out to say that the governors are lavish in their spendings while people are suffering. And we quickly asked them to keep quiet. But when you benchmark the realities in the land with those comments, you must understand that we have serious issues. So let's focus on good governance. And please, people will be quick to tell DSS, why don't you collaborate with other law enforcement agents and go and deal with the killings in Plateau, killings in the north and the bandits and all those things, you know, rather than going after social media operations. And at the same time, I will be advising that we should, to a large extent, season our comments with salt. But you know, no matter how loud you advise, some are not ready to season. I mean, I was shocked. We are still talking about Sowore calling the president criminal. He now say Wike is an international thief.
Anyway.
So you know that such a character. And again, let's come back to leadership and good governance.
Right.
You remember when the president of the Senate, Wike, was invited to render account of the money meant for NDDC. He started challenging them that you got a contract, and at the time they said off your mic. So do we have corruption in the land?
That's
the answer is no, it is yes.
To what magnitude again?
So what do we do about it?
But then we have to wrap up now because we've run out of time, and I'm sure that that's a question that a great way to wrap up the conversation, and a question that Mr. Ajide Ologun has posed to Nigerians. You know, do we have corruption in the land, and what do we do about it? Thank you so much for joining us on the show this morning, sir.